Good afternoon, Chad. How's it going?
It's going great, Paul. How are you?
Still getting over a little bit of a cold, but beside that, it's exciting. The holidays are coming, and I'm excited to be on again with you again this week.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So last time we spoke last week, you had just put a few jobs out into the shop in ProShop, and your leads exclusively were going to work on those.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did that go, and how's the week gone so far?
It's been going really, really well. I think the more that they dive into it, they just keep on coming up with questions, right?
Hmm.
And the more that they dig into it, the more they get accustomed to it, uh, the the better it's been, right? Just
Hmm.
the whole team engagement of it has been phenomenal.
Awesome. And so you said that you're starting, if I remember correctly, you're starting with fairly complete work orders with quality checks and all that kind of stuff. Is that true with the ones you did last week?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. So I didn't start at the customer PO side. I was
Yep.
just trying to get them, you know, some work on dealing with the work orders, right? Like that's
Hmm.
that's where
Sure.
the
Yeah.
bulk of where they're gonna, guys on the shop floor are gonna live is in those work orders. So we just kind of wanted to get a sense of how that flow would look like, and get it out to our leads so they can get all the wrinkles worked out on their end, all their questions answered before we rolled it out to the shop floor guys. Um, so I just went in there. I created parts. I created work orders for those parts. Some of them were brand new orders. Some of them were already existing orders that they were running.
Hmm.
I gave everybody, all my shop leads, an ability last week to exclusively work in ProShop.
And are those, I imagine those are working leads, like they run their own machines as well?
Yes, yep, all of
Okay.
them run at least one machine to certain capacity. So,
Right.
and maybe they don't, but they wanted to test it to see how they could implement it
Sure.
to the team. So yeah,
Okay. So were they out there then like doing first article or in process QC as the parts ran?
yep, yep,
Any
absolutely.
any feedback on how that was like? And is that in comparison to just writing it down on paper forms or?
Yeah, I think it was pretty positive. They love the colors that show up, right?
Hmm.
So in the IPC checks, sorry, in the in process
Yeah, it's all
inspection
good.
checks, um, they can, if it's within 20% of the outer range, it'll pop up in yellow,
Yep.
and they love seeing that.
That is so cool. Yeah, I've heard the occasional story, fortunately not that often, but of someone running parts, writing down their results on paper,
Yeah.
thinking they were making good parts, but realizing later that even the things they were writing were out of tolerance, but they just didn't
Right on.
notice.
Yeah, it,
So,
it happens to us, right? Even in our Excel spreadsheets that we had, right? I've got, the dimension, I've got the tolerances next to that. And then off to that, I've got the high and low, right? Like
right,
all grayed out, like you can't miss it.
right,
And even still, right? There's a couple jobs a year that somebody just misses, right?
right.
Um, so to have that awareness from the IPC side of it in ProShop is great. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna know if you put a dimension outside, it's gonna show up in red, right? Just that color
Yeah, and then
visualization.
prompts you to make a nonconformance.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yep.
right. It even shows up there. Hey, are you sure you want to do this?
Yes, exactly. Well, that's great experience. And so now this week you're starting to do the full meal deal, customer purchase order, then spawning the
Yeah,
work orders.
yeah. So we're still working with the leads,
Hmm.
but we're taking it from an office standpoint. We're running in parallel now with QuickBooks.
Okay,
So we're putting in our orders in QuickBooks, but we're also putting the order in ProShop. Um,
fantastic.
we're also working with our shipping receiving is now starting to see all the work orders previously that we set up last week coming
Oh,
through to
nice.
them. So he's been working on, that one of the guys in our shipping receiving handles all the outside processing POs.
Hmm.
So he's been working on that, printing out packing slips for that. And so yeah, he's starting to get involved with it.
Any feedback from him on the ease of now? I presume for the sample jobs, you had the outside source vendors filled out, you had the mill specs or whatever
Yep.
filled out.
Yep. All that's filled out. Yep.
So it's like a one-click deal to make a PO and packing slip.
Yep. So for him, he's bulk, we're doing multiple parts going to a specific vendor. So
Mm-hmm.
he's taking
Okay.
it even one step further and
Right.
combining work orders to go out to plating for that plating process.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. Awesome. Well, the other really big exciting thing that you told me is that Mike Watkins from EBITDA Growth Systems is there on site doing some training and coaching with your teams. I'd love to
Yes.
hear more about that.
Yeah. So we had Mike come in today. When we were out in Colorado, I picked his brain a little bit, and when we signed up with Ever to Grow Systems, this was one of the visions that I had, was to get these guys on site with our guys to do some leadership training, and so today was day one of that.
Mm-hmm.
Mike flew in last night and got a chance to have breakfast with him this morning, and he's been here since for the last 6 or 7 hours, working with all of my leads.
And tell us what kind of things he's teaching.
So, I just got on before I jumped on this call. I was the last thing he was touching on was high performing teams.
Yep.
So, one of the other reasons that I had him come here was, especially at this time, right? I feel like we're at a very critical point, and we're just getting ready to roll this out to our shop floor,
Mm-hmm.
company wide, and having him come in here and teach these guys what leadership is, and especially he's hitting it home with ProShop at the end.
Mm-hmm. Right.
As to why it's important to have an ERP system, and why it's important, the great benefits that ProShop offers, but also with that, right? Like there's, it's very real that there's going to be some fear that comes along with that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how are my leads going to deal with that when it comes about, right?
Yeah.
So it's been a great day.
Wow, Chad, I applaud you for taking that sort of strategic view of it and the big picture and investing in your team. And I know that'll pay enormous dividends down the road. I wrote a blog, I don't know when it was, a couple of years ago, about the comparison of the alignment of like high emotional intelligence and success in ERP implementations, which comes down to all sorts of things, really good communication. And so I think you have a high EQ, and you're helping your team members raise theirs as well. And I think that's just indicative of your success in business and how you're doing with ProShop. So
for every system that you implement, right? Like things aren't going to go perfect, right? And you've got to come up with solutions around those problems that arise. So it was just it was a great opportunity for us to blend, Ever to Grow Systems and ProShop together today, and teach our guys on the shop floor the importance of ProShop for us.
Well, I think that right there will be the most important lesson from today's video, that investing in team members like that and taking that big picture, making sure you listen to them, hear their fears, validate them. It's all such fantastic stuff. Yeah, and you're right. Any kind of major change in a company requires change management and working with the people. And what bigger change can you possibly do than switching ERP systems? So it can be fraught with challenges. And I know, it blows my mind still, to be honest, when you do a Google search out there on like failure rate or success rate of ERP implementations, there's something like a 70 to 75% failure rate. It's crazy. And ours is vastly smaller than that. It's about 93% success, but
I think that speaks volumes, though, to your, the implementation process that you guys have, right? I mean, it's all laid out for you.
Sure.
Having Robert on with us twice a week via Zoom call for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Right? You can't you can't replicate that. I mean,
Sure. Yeah. And you said before we got on, your leads just really peppered him with questions yesterday and just
they
really.
did, yeah. Yeah, so we spent, we've got an hour and a half with them, or we allotted an hour and a half with them twice a week. So yesterday, of that hour and a half, they spent over an hour just, I mean, they had a whole week's worth of questions just built up, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I told those guys that there's no better way. You got to write down your questions, right? Whether it's, in Google Docs or, on a spreadsheet or on a notepad, something, right? Write those down, bring those to him. Well, they certainly brought it to him.
That's awesome. Well, two things. One, obviously, because Robert has the background as a machinist, as an estimator, he just comes from that shop floor background. So I expect and I hope that he was able to answer those questions with great granularity and really a lot of context.
He certainly did.
That's awesome. And then the other one that we've just started doing, and I don't know if your team is doing this yet, but consider it. You're familiar with the process development feature?
Okay.
Right? Have you been taught that feature yet in ProShop?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the goal of that feature is when you're working on parts, you can write down problems, challenges, questions, things that you want to address in a defined workflow. And we're starting to use the process development feature on the training work order that you're going through for all those questions. So it's a great single spot. So instead of a Google Doc or a piece of paper, have your team members write down their questions or concerns right in the process development of the training implementation work order.
I like that.
And then it's in one spot. Robert can then, people can type out the answers or just keep track of what was said. You can add links, you can do other things, but it's a great place to make sure all of the concerns are in one spot. And we're using, and they're also learning ProShop as they do it, learning the process development feature, which is a powerful feature. So it's kind of, drinking our own Kool-Aid, making sure we're using the tool to train on the tool, and you just get more familiarity with it. So,
and that was a great thing last week too. Getting them to use just more than the work order, right? Hey, they're coming to me, hey, because we're not really live yet. They're like, hey, I need a work order for this part, right? Well, instead of telling me, how about you go email it to me, right? In the little
in the messaging system,
yeah, in the messaging system you got. So that was a nice little opportunity for them to start playing around with other things, right? So,
well, yeah, I'm glad you said that. That is exactly the scenario, even in our own shop, when we had a machinist, especially a new one, come to one of our programmers with a problem with a part. They'd walk into their office and say, hey, I got this part I'm making, and I have a problem. And the programmer would say, go back to your computer, put it in a process development, and send me a link to that through ProShop. Or if they tagged them with the checkbox, they'd immediately get notified anyway. But basically forcing them to use the tool. And then the benefit of that is, next week or the month later, if someone has a similar problem, they can just pull up process development, see that it was already been resolved, see what the solution was, and they don't have to go bug the programmer this time. So, yeah, so that's awesome. You're doing that. I applaud how great a job you're doing. And thanks for joining me again. So I think we're going to take a couple of weeks off because the holidays are coming up here. So we'll probably check in with you early January.
Sounds great.
See how it's all going.
Along at that point. So
yeah, awesome. Well, Chad, thank you again so much for investing your time in doing this. I know people are going to get a lot out of it, and just thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
All right, happy holidays. We'll talk to you again soon.
You too. Take care.